Hello and welcome back to Mentoring Maya. I'm Mohammed Bilal. Today, we're going to tackle a challenge that can honestly make or break a clinical trial, and that's making sense of all the data that doesn't come from our primary database. So, let's get right into it.
Now, for those of you who might be new here, this series is all about my conversations with Maya. She's a really bright public health graduate just starting her journey in clinical data management. And today, Maya, we're going to move beyond just the core data collection. We're going to look at how we manage all the other puzzle pieces.
So I started by asking Maya this very question. Think about it. We've got data flying in from everywhere. Specialty labs, patient wearables, imaging centers, you name it. The real trick isn't just getting the data, it's making sure it all fits together like a perfect jigsaw puzzle, telling one single cohesive and true story about our patient.
And that, right there, is really the heart of the whole thing. This whole process of managing data from outside vendors, it's one of the biggest challenges we face. When you get it right, everything is streamlined. But man, when it goes wrong, it can put the entire study at risk.
So why do we put so much work into this? Well, it all boils down to these 4 pillars, and they come straight from the Good Clinical Data Management Practices, or GCDMP. We have this fundamental obligation to make sure every single piece of data, no matter its source, meets these standards. This is the very bedrock of trustworthy research.
I want you to picture this. Think of your clinical database as a high-performance car engine. The core data you collect yourself, that's the engine block. But the real power, that comes from specialty parts from other vendors, the turbocharger, the fuel injectors. Now, if just one of those parts from one vendor doesn't fit or communicate correctly with the others, the whole engine could seize up. And that's exactly what we're trying to prevent here.
Okay, so this brings up a pretty obvious question. What is this external data anyway? Let's break it down and get specific.
The simple definition is this. It's any data that's not entered directly into your main system. That's the Clinical Data Management System, or CDMS. But it still has to be merged with your main data for the final analysis to be complete. It's a vital part of seeing the whole patient picture.
In Maya, you are going to be dealing with these all the time. We're talking about things like central lab results, chemistry, hematology, ECG readouts, and even patient-reported outcomes, or PROs, which are often collected on a patient's smartphone. You might also see data from automated phone systems. Those are called IVRS. Every single one is a unique data stream that we have to manage flawlessly.
Now, I know this can sound a bit daunting, but here's the good news. There's a proven method for managing it all. We don't just cross our fingers and hope for the best. No, we follow a very structured blueprint. Let's walk through what that looks like.
Really, the whole process comes down to these 4 steps. But the most important thing to remember, Maya, is that final step, reconcile. It's not a one-time thing. It's not something you just do at the end. It is a continuous cycle of reviewing and problem-solving that goes on for the entire length of the trial.
And that second step, standardize. Oh, man, this is where so many projects get into trouble. Before a single data point is ever sent your way, you and the vendor have to agree on the exact format. It doesn't matter if it's SAS or a simple text file or XML. Getting that decision locked in early is going to save you a world of pain down the line.
Okay, so we've got our blueprint, but just following a process isn't quite enough. We also need a set of quality control rules. The non-negotiables that make sure this process is done perfectly every single time.
This is a question I want you to have in your head constantly, Maya. It's not just about getting the data in the door. It's about guaranteeing its quality. So, what are those core principles we absolutely have to live by?
It all boils down to this one thing: unique identifiers. If you get a lab result, but you can't match it back to the exact patient at the exact visit, well, that data is completely worthless. These key variables, things like subject ID, site ID, visit number, they are the universal translators that let all our different data sources talk to each other.
And that brings us right to this essential checklist. Seriously, memorize these 5 rules. We've talked about a few already, right? Make those identifiers ironclad, agree on the formats before you start, and reconcile constantly. But look at the other 2. Always protect the study blind, and when it's all over, archive everything in an open, accessible format.
Look, a process is only as good as the team that's actually doing it. And with so many people involved, you've got vendors, statisticians, the clinical team, you absolutely need a tool to prevent chaos. And that tool is a RACI chart. This simple grid just clearly defines who is responsible, who's accountable, who needs to be consulted, and who just needs to be kept informed for every task. It's an absolute lifesaver for communication.
All right, finally, let's talk about the very last step. It's one that often gets overlooked, but it is so critical for long-term compliance and, frankly, the future of science, and that's proper archiving. Your job isn't over just because the database is locked.
This slide really gets to the core of why we have to archive in specific ways. You have to use open formats, like XML or CSV. Why? Because that proprietary software from some vendor might be totally obsolete in 20 years. But in open format, that guarantees that future researchers and, just as importantly, regulatory agencies can always access and understand the data. This isn't just a nice to have, it's a requirement.
So I'll leave you with this final thought, Maya. I know this work can seem tedious sometimes. All the spec documents, the checks, the endless reconciliations. But never, ever forget the real purpose behind it all. We're not just integrating data. We are painstakingly assembling the single, unified truth that could, one day, lead to a breakthrough. And that is a powerful responsibility.